Good morning, afternoon, and evening all. This is Yorkie with episode 12 of my in-depth track guide series, and this week we are taking a look at Monza from Italy. Hopefully by now you know the video format, and we are going to start off by jumping pretty much straight into the breakdown. So, gaining control of the car just before the last corner, basically just before that 50-meter board, you want to brake and basically just try and carry as much speed through the corner as possible. Try and get the power down as early as possible, and then obviously start draining the curves before the start-finish line. We're going to bring the car over to the right-hand side of the track for the shortest route, open up the DRS at the activation point, then slowly bring the car to the left-hand side of the track ready for turn 1. So our braking point then for turn 1 is at the 150-meter board. Braking at this point, you need to brake very heavily and shift down the gears rather aggressively to try and get the car slowed down, ready for that first turn. We're going to be shifting down from 7th all the way down into 1st, and we're going to try and keep to the left hand side of the track to try and open up the corner. So actually in the braking zone then, shifting down those gears and turning into the corner, we're looking for our apex on the inside curb just here with an apex speed of about 60 miles per hour, which equates to 95 kilometers per hour. At this point we're still trail braking ever so very slightly, but not much, and basically you want to try and take this curb. You can take it quite aggressively actually, more so than other tracks. Just kind of bounce over the curb but keep at least 2 wheels within those white lines. So coming out the corner, balance the throttle, give it a very short spurt of the throttle, take you into turn 2. And we're actually going to be slowing the car ever so slightly more as this corner is tighter than the first. So bringing the speed down to 55 miles per hour, which equates to 90 kilometers per hour. Coming out through the exit, you want to be balancing the throttle only very slightly. You don't want to jump on it as it will send you out wide onto the gravel on the outside of the corner. So once you got the car straight and also the wheel, that's when you bring the power in heavily. Once you get up into second gear, you should be full throttle. Once you get into third, start draining your curves down to about 50% as we come into turn 3 now. Try and keep a smooth, shallow steering angle and try and keep that acceleration building, and bring the car over to the right hand side of the track ready for turn 4. Our braking point is about 110 meters before the corner. I tend to brake at this shadow just here. We're going to be shifting from 7th gear down into 1st, and we're going to be braking rather aggressively and downshifting very aggressively to try and get the car slowed down, ready for this turn. So coming into the braking zone now, braking hard, shifting down relatively aggressively. Once you get to the red and white curb on the outside, that's when you throw the car into the corner. You're looking to hook up the apex on the inside here, on this inside curb, about 85 miles per hour, which equates to 135 kilometers per hour. We're still kind of trail braking at this point, but if you get the car slowed down enough, you can actually start to balance the throttle ever so slightly, ready for transition into turn 5. So coming into this transition now, you want to do this relatively smoothly. And as you probably heard, I was already on the throttle balancing it as we come into this corner. You want to avoid cutting it too much. Your apex point should be just here. This is where your right wheel should be clipping. Apex speed should be about 80 miles per hour, which equates to 130 kilometers per hour. Unfortunately, I didn't quite get it slowed down enough. Ended up taking it a little bit too much off the curb. You want to try and keep 2 wheels within those white lines. So coming out through the exit of the corner, run the curb and get hard on the accelerator once you feel your traction's there. Coming into turn 6 now, our braking point is at this large shadow here. It's pretty much the last big shadow that runs across the width of the track before the corner itself. We're going to be shifting from 4th gear just down 1 gear into 3rd, and we're just basically just going to try and carry as much speed as possible throughout the duration of this bend. And throwing the car in now, shifting down, and we're just going to hold the inside line here, hugging this inside curb. Your apex point should be about midway to late on the corner. Your apex speed should be about 130 miles per hour, which equates to 210 kilometers per hour. And as you come out through this point, you should be balancing the throttle probably about 30, maybe 40%. And we want to run the curb on the exit. Try and carry as much speed as possible. Try not to let all 4 wheels go across the white lines. Try and keep 2 with inside. And then coming into turn 7 now. Our braking point is at this 50-meter board, and pretty much as you start braking, you're going to be shifting down from 5th gear down into 3rd. It's a relatively short braking zone. We're also going to throw the car in and try and hook up this inside curb. And this corner basically has the same principle as the last one, just try and carry as much speed through it as possible. So coming into the corner now, I've actually just come just shy of the apex. You want to be running the curb on the inside here. Your apex speed should be about 120 miles per hour, which equates to 195 kilometers per hour. And if you get this hooked up quite nicely, you can get a very good exit down onto this back straight. From this point onwards, you should be balancing the throttle probably about 40% again. And as you come out through the corner, get the car straight, that's when you jump on the accelerator, run the curb on the exit, drain about 20% of your curves, and open up the DRS at the activation point. I ran a little bit wide there because I was just shy of the apex. So bringing the car to the right hand side of the track, our braking point is at the start of the darker tarmac on the track there, about 105-110 metres before the corner. We're going to be shifting from 7th gear down into 3rd, and basically we're going to keep to the right hand side of the track, try and throw the car in as late as possible and try and carry as much speed through this corner and the following series of bends. So coming through now, shifting down through the gears. Once you get to the 50-metre board, that's when we're going to throw the car in. We're looking to hook up the apex on the inside curb here, about 130 miles per hour, which equates to 210 kilometers per hour. This is the point where your left wheel should be clipping. You don't want to take too much curb on the inside, as you want to try and keep two wheels within those white lines at all times. Coming out through the exit of this corner, you want to be balancing the throttle. Right hander immediately follows. Should be completely flat out from this point onwards. Run the curb on the inside and then transition to this left hander. Just clip the curb on the inside and then clip the curb on the outside there and try and carry as much speed as possible. So we're coming down towards the final turn now, slowly bringing the car over to the left hand side of the track to open it up. At the end of this Rolex marking on the left hand side of the track here on the grass, that is our start of our braking point. It's about 60 metres before the corner. We're going to be braking from 7th gear down into 3rd, and we're basically just going to try and carry as much speed into the entry of this corner as possible. So coming into the braking zone now, we're going to be braking and shifting down the gears. Once you go over that white line, which is the DRS detection point, that's when you start to turn in. Our apex point is actually relatively easy to spot. It's kind of where the curb kind of sharpens and juts out ever so slightly. It goes from sharp to shallow again. Our apex speed should be about 130 miles per hour, which equates to 210 kilometers per hour. You want to clip the curb on the inside here. At this point, you should be on the throttle again, probably about 30-40%, just balancing it. As we come out through the exit of the corner and you feel it start to shallow out, that's when you want to bring the throttle back into 100%. Shift up the gear, try and keep a shallow steering angle. Once we get up into 5th, you're going to drain the rest of the curves and then run over to the right hand side of the track to keep the shortest route to the end of the lap. So we're now going to move on to the hot lap, which is exactly the same lap that I just showed you there, but without me talking over the top, so you can listen to both throttle inputs and the sounds of the engine. Okay, so now that you've seen the dry lap, we're now going to move on to a wet hot lap and basically talk about the braking and apexes in this. So coming into the final corner, basically the same premise as it was in the dry, to try and carry as much speed throughout the exit as possible. Start draining the curves once you feel the traction's there, and obviously keep to the right hand side of the track for the shortest route down to turn 1. As we come now down towards turn 1, we're going to slowly let the car drift over to the left hand side of the track to try and open it up. Our braking point is about 160 metres before the corner, just before. Try and get the car slowed down. Hook up the curbs on the inside of both turn 1 and 2 quite nicely. Be very patient on the throttle coming out of the exit of the corner. Try not to spin those rear wheels too much, and then we're going to drain about 40% of the curves this time, coming into a flat out turn 3. So coming out through the exit, we're going to bring the car over to the right hand side of the track, pretty much the same spot it was before, maybe 5 meters earlier. Try and hook up those curbs quite nicely, try not to cut the curb on the second part on the right hander. We're then going to drain about 10% of our curves as we come now into turn 6. Same premise as it was in the dry, pretty much exactly the same braking points for both these corners, just try and carry as much speed as possible. Coming out through the exit of turn 7, we're going to drain about 10-15% of our curves as we now come down towards turn 8. Bring the car over to the right hand side of the track, same braking point as it was before where the tarmac gets darker, hook up the curb completely flat out through these next 2 corners, and now try and carry as much speed through the exit of that left hander to try and really help yourself down this straight down towards the final corner. Our braking point is about 5 meters earlier as it was in the dry. Hook up that curb on the inside there, the same apex point. Once you've got traction down, you're up into 5th gear, and you've got the car pretty much straight. That's when you drain the rest of the curves, bring the car to the right hand side of the track for the shortest line to the end of the lap. So that is going to complete those 2 hot laps, and we're now going to move on to the setups for both dry and wet. Starting off with the dry, where we're using a 1-1 front and rear wing angles. We're using a 48-52 and then a high standard brake pressure, size and balance. Our actual balance for our car is a 7 on the front and then 4 on the rear. Ride heights is a 1-1 and then a 6 and a 1 on spring stiffness. Those are the gear ratios I was using in miles per hour, and then again in kilometers per hour. You may want to use slightly shorter gear 7 in race conditions, obviously not always having DRS. And then finally the toe and camber, and camber all the way left to the front and slightly left on the rear. So coming on to the wet lap now, there's a 2-2 on wing angles this time, just 1 more than the dry. Pretty much the same balance as it was in the dry, instead of medium pressure instead of high. Balance slightly softer on both the front and rear anti-roll bars. Suspension 1-1-6-1, as you can see there. And then those are the gear ratios that I was using in miles per hour, and of course the gear ratios in kilometers per hour. You should be fine carrying these into race conditions. And then finally the toe and camber settings, which are exactly the same as they were in the dry. So that is going to conclude it for episode 12 of my in-depth track guide series. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Please give the video a rating, and of course don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content in the future. I shall hopefully see you soon, guys. Take care.